Thank you everyone for being here today as we begin our Latin American conference. I want to thank our esteemed guests for being part of our journey this morning, so thank you for being part of what we're doing here today. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking to you not as the president of ASIS, but as a fellow security professional who has been doing this for way too many years. And I just want to tell you a little bit of my story and where we can go as a profession. And I'm going to need you folks to laugh every now and then because this is a really big room. See? Yes? All right. So if we can, I want to talk a little bit about my story and where I am. But before I begin, I want to make sure that as we begin this journey, we begin as amigos, as friends, as professionales, as people who want to be part.
Excuse me for this.
Yes.
Hay traducción simultánea y hay aparatos afuera. Si alguien quiere ir a buscarlos para poder hacer la traducción, ya están traduciendo en el momento que Tim está hablando, de inglés a español y de español a inglés.
No, thank you. So let's begin our journey today as amigos, as friends. And I'm going to talk to you as a fellow security professional and a friend who's been doing this for an awful lot of years. So let's begin. I want to talk a little bit about myself, but not too much, because I want to spend more time talking with you. I want to go over the basics of enterprise security risk management, something that's very important to me, and is something that is so important for the profession of security. I want to talk about this conflict between physical and cybersecurity, and how these groups need to work together for us to be successful. There is a better way, and I've lived that better way, but I want to go through this story with you. And then finally, what happens if we actually start working together? Good? See? Gracias. So let's begin. I want to use my two dogs to demonstrate my career. So I have two dogs that my wife and I have recovered from shelters in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. The one that's asleep is Hazel. She's about a 120-pound bull mastiff, and she likes to sleep a lot. But she's also bigger than my wife. My wife's about 110 pounds, she's about 120. So it's fun to watch the two of them walk down the street. The other dog is Piper. She's really fast, very smart. She's too smart sometimes for the house that we have. But I've been doing this for over 40 years now in security. I started my career in 1981. How many people were alive in 1981? Am I the only one in the room? Okay, thank you. Thank you. I started working in 1981. I retired from the Air Force in Canada, and I needed to find a job, mostly because I still owed money to the mess hall for all the alcohol I drank in my career in the military. I needed a job. So the first job I took was a security guard in a hotel in downtown Winnipeg, Manitoba. Has anyone ever had the pleasure of going up to Canada in the winter? Yeah, so picture really bad winters, and that's where I was living in Winnipeg. So my first job was as a security guard in a hotel, and then I became the chief security officer for that hotel and a few others. But throughout my career, I always tried to remember where I came from. I came from the military, I came from a family of military, and I learned the idea of service before self. And I've carried that through my entire career, and it started as that security guard in that hotel. In the last 42 years, I have been an executive, I have run security programs and run my own security companies in 19 different occasions. It means I can't hold a job. Right? The humor doesn't get better, folks, it's just going to get worse. Right? I am now the president of ASIS after 42 years. It doesn't take this long, I promise. You don't have to wait this long to become president. But I've been on the board for 7 years. I am a husband, I am a son, I'm a brother, I'm a friend. I'm also a security podcaster. I've written articles and helped write books on security. I call myself a security guy, and I run long distances because I think it's fun. So the last race I ran was 125 kilometers, and I did it in 18 hours. Yeah, I don't have a home life, so I just figure running is really fun, right? And last but not least, one of the things I'm most proud of is I'm the father of Hazel and Piper, and I'm going to use this in my story as we move forward. But before we get to the story, I want to talk about enterprise security risk management. How many people have seen this diagram? How many people have taken classes and courses on ESRM? Take a look around. How come not everyone's hand is up? If we look at what we can do with the model for ESRM, this is one of the ways that we can move forward in the profession of security. Let's first start with the right-hand side in the context of security. What does that mean? Today in this room, how many of you can raise your hand that you actually know the mission statement of the company you work for? Good. How about the vision statement? Can you explain the core values of your organization to somebody like your mom or your dad or your brother? Room gets quieter then, yes? Right. One of the things that we need to do as security professionals, if we're going to be very good at our job, is we need to understand, why are we protecting this company? Why does this company exist? What is its purpose? What's its mission? What's the goals and objectives for this company? Because it is so hard to protect something if you don't understand what you're protecting. All of us as security professionals, one of the first things we should do in every job we take is understand who the organization is and why does it exist. I've done this in every one of the jobs that I've been in, and I've spent a great deal of time taking other people for coffee throughout my career to ask them, what is their job? What do they do? And more importantly, why do they do it? Because that helps us as security professionals build a better security program. I also want to understand, where does this company operate? Is it a city? Is it a province or a state? Is it a company that's making money, a for-profit company, or is it a volunteer organization? All of those things tell me the operating environment of the business that I'm working with, and that helps me set a program that's going to reflect what we need to do every day. And then finally, in any organization, do you know who your stakeholders are? Yes? Here's an example. In the city of Calgary, I was the chief security officer. We had 1.5 million citizens, 15,000 employees. We were the second largest landmass city in Canada. And my stakeholders were not just the employees, but it was citizens and taxpayers and the police and the fire department and the bylaw department. We have to know who all of our stakeholders are so we can build a better security program and work with them. On the very bottom, whenever we build a security program based on enterprise risk management, security management, we need to know what is the risk profile and the appetite for risk across our company. Who are the partners that we have to work with as stakeholders, and can we establish a strong bond with them? One of the things that we need to do in security to take away the stigma of what people think security is be open and transparent. It's on us as professionals to build a security program that can stand up to scrutiny and observation and to audit and review, because that leads to great governance. And one of the things we all should know is that we need to be a governing program, and we need to have rules as well. And the way I look at my security programs is we should be a level above everybody else, because we're the ones who enforce the rules. Make sense? Is everyone still awake? Do we need more coffee in here? You guys are? Okay. Let's move on. So as we get into this, now I'm going to start talking about the two halves of my career. So the first part of my career as a physical security professional, and I also have spent time in the last half of my career as a cybersecurity professional. But throughout my career, there was conflict. These teams don't always get along. In fact, many cases, these teams work against each other because they think they have a better idea of how to build a security program. And that's a mistake, because I've lived it. And I've had that mistake come back and haunt me for many years. But let's see if we can figure out where some of the mistakes I made along the way. The first up is, I was Hazel. Okay, not really Hazel the dog, but I was Hazel. The humor, folks, doesn't get better. It's going to be like this all morning, right? So here I am. I think I'm this really big, tough, strong dog. I focused on physical security controls. So my whole job was to make sure that I existed because I had to protect something. And Hazel in our house does the same thing. She thinks that her whole job is to protect the house. And every time the FedEx guy comes to the house, she proves that point. Right? So for us, when we understand as physical security professionals, I gained expertise in a lot of different areas. So I learned all about CCTV and cameras and card access systems. I was one of the best in Canada for conducting fraud investigations against telephone companies. We got really good at that. It doesn't mean anything now, but we got really good at that back in the 1980s and 1990s. I worked on executive protection, so one of my jobs was to make sure that the CEO who was drunk in a cab got home safe every night. That was my job, to get him home safe every night. We also made sure that we worked on our lock and key program, and we did threat and risk assessments from a physical security perspective. And one of the things that I did, I remember my very first risk assessment as a brand new security investigator. I went to this building in the middle of northern Alberta when it was really cold in the winter, and they told me I had to follow the program, and they gave me a binder of about 900 questions to look at, and to stand first in the parking lot, and then in the lobby, and then in the building, and then in the storage room, and finally to the equipment. That took me days, because it was 900 questions, but I thought I was doing the right thing. I was really just freezing my butt off in the middle of northern Alberta, but I thought I was doing the right thing. And what looked at for me as a security program was really a way of just checking things like compliance. It was a checkbox. It wasn't a program. But I thought at the time it was. And we heard about this thing called computer security. So now picture, folks, remember I talked about, I started in 1981. So in about 1995, 96, we were starting to hear things about these guys with computers. And they were starting to look at computer security. And we thought it was interesting, and we thought that this was a different, a different approach. We also thought those people were geeks, and we didn't want to go for coffee with them. We didn't like them. We didn't like what they were doing. And more importantly, we didn't like the money they were getting, because that was our money. And they were getting our budget now. And that really bugged us, because it was intriguing to see what they were doing. But our idea of security was, I'm going to protect the data center. I don't care about the stuff inside of it. I'm going to make sure that your laptop will never get stolen. I don't care what's on your laptop. That was our view back then of what securing a program was. We didn't look at cybersecurity the way we do today. But that was one of the mistakes we made, is we thought that they were going against us. And we also thought learning new tricks was really hard. So when I got Hazel, so just so everyone knows a little bit about my dog, she was a rescue dog. So we rescued her from an animal fund that found her in a pit bull fighting ring west of our city in Calgary. So for 2 years, she fought every day for food and for water. And when she came to our house, she didn't even know how to play with a toy because she didn't have one. So it took me a year of doing this to finally play with her so she knew what to do with a toy. And when she finally did, I had to stop because, man, she's got a really big head. Like, that was a big head. So she really understood how to play then, and I think she shook my head off a couple of times. But it took a long time for her to learn that new trick. And for us in physical security, we didn't want to talk to the cybersecurity folks because they were talking about things like, what if we moved all of the cameras onto the same network as we get our email on? Wouldn't that be great? No, that's not great. You're taking away my equipment. You're running your stuff on somebody else's cable. I don't run that thing. I don't know what's on that network, but you're telling me my computer, like all of my images from my cameras are going to be on that screen. No, I don't want to do that. Then they said, well, what if we took your card access system and put it on the same system as the computers that run our business? No, wait a second. No. I put a lot of money into that system. We ran our own cables. I don't want to use your stuff. I didn't put that in. I don't know what you did with that. So that's the fight we had. And that fight was a horrible way of approaching it because these guys meant well. The cyber guys, they meant really well. But I thought they were trying to steal all of our stuff. And it really bothered us because as they were getting better, we were being left behind. So you can see Hazel doesn't run that fast. She doesn't run as long as I do. And she really had a problem trying to keep up with Piper. And that's the same with physical security back in the 90s. They had a really tough time keeping up with cybersecurity. And there's a reason why. It's because at the time, we didn't open our mind up to the possibility of working together and being a team and trying to look at risk from a different perspective. So I did something different. So this was 1998 when I made a big decision. So I quit my job. I decided I had enough. And I looked at getting a course or two. And I went to school for 2 years. So I put myself to school for 2 years. Didn't work, went back to school. And I did it for a reason. I wanted to understand computer systems. I wanted to understand programming. What was this whole thing about cybersecurity? I wanted to know more about it. So I did. For 2 years, I went back to school. At the time, I was the oldest person in class. There was 18-year-old kids who were learning how to create code so they could go work for gaming companies and make millions of dollars. I wasn't that guy. I probably should have been, but I wasn't that guy. I was the person who came into the class and I wanted to understand how to break into it. And if I could figure out how to break into it, I could stop people from breaking in. That was my whole goal. So for 2 years, I sat in class. I remember my very first assignment, I handed it in and I failed. I got like 40%, it was horrible. I brought it home to my wife at the time, did I say that? My wife at the time, who looked at me and said, Tim, I told you you weren't going to be able to do this. You should just quit. So I'm going to swear now, and I'm going to make sure the folks in the booth said, I said to her, that's lovely, thank you. I appreciate you being so supportive of me. And then I went back downstairs to the basement to my office, and I said to myself, this is bullshit. Did I get that? Okay. And I made a promise to myself to work harder, and I did. So for the next 18 months, I worked hard. I found a group of people who were just like me, who came in not knowing anything about computers. And I said, hey, why don't we spend lunch hours together and see if we could come up with some ideas to some of the problems? And we did, and it was just 3 of us. And we were all in our 30s, we were old back then, all in our 30s, and we were talking to each other. And then other people started to see our grades get better. And they asked, Tim, what are you doing at lunch with this group? Oh, we're just talking. We're just helping each other out. Well, can we come? Sure, come on in. So we went from 3 people to 10 to 20, and by the end of the second year, we were at 60 people who showed up for lunch every day and talked about the work we needed to do. And I graduated with honors on the dean's list after 2 years. And then I went back to my wife, who didn't get an honors on the same program, and said, I'm glad I stuck through this. Thanks for being part of my life. You have a good life. And we went separate ways. And then I started my career where I find now the most fun is, because now I am Piper. Now I'm that fast dog that's running ahead of everything else and trying to find a way to make life secure. Doesn't always happen, doesn't always work, but now we try. So now I focus on cybersecurity in my career. And more importantly, I spend time as either a chief information security officer or a chief security officer, and now as a vice president, consulting with companies, helping them get better at the work that they have to do to serve you as customers and clients and citizens. So now I've gained not only expertise on the physical side of the world, but now on the cyber side, I understand how networks work. I understand how code works and how malware works. I spent time on industrial control systems to figure out how do I make sure that the water moves down the pipe in the right direction from the right tanks. I understand how the electrical grid works because I had a chance to secure that across North America and write standards that you are using here today. All of those things I got a chance to do when I decided I needed to leave physical and move into cyber. And now I get a chance to do threat and risk assessments as well. Except now I do it on the cyber side, but with a background in physical security. And in this world, when I came over to the cyber side, I thought, it's going to be safer here. What can possibly go wrong on the computer security side? How bad can things get? How many people have read ransomware attacks that show up on the news every day? How many people have received emails that you know are not coming from your president, but they want you to send money to the bank? How many people can't wait to get their package from FedEx and realize that wasn't from FedEx, that email? What did I just click on? Yeah, it's not safer over here. It's just a different way of trying to get the same thing from us. Right? So as professionals now, we have a chance to figure out how can we do this? Because I wanted to learn more. So around 2000, between 2000 and 2005, I spent a lot of time looking back at my life and trying to figure out what was the common thread for all of this. And it was risk. And in that time, a group of people were also thinking the same thing. And they started building up this program called Enterprise Security Risk Management. And then they published a white paper in 2005, and they had a group of individuals get together and hire a consulting firm to help them do more research. And ASIS, ISACA, and ISSA came together and created the Alliance for Enterprise Security Risk Management, and that was 2005. So ESRM has been around for almost 20 years. That was a really good start. We all thought this was a terrific idea. So many of us got together on these. We had a couple of conferences just on ESRM, and we all got together in rooms just like this, And I think we did more work here and in the bar next door to figure out how to make ESRM even better. And then sadly, egos got in the way, and that thing died. So for about 3 years, a few of us that still thought this was such a great idea, we still went and gave sessions just like this across North America and the world to talk about ESRM. It took a little while. I actually went back before I came here and looked at some of the sessions I gave, and one of the ones, the earliest ones I gave on ESRM was 2006. That's a long, long time ago. It took until 2015 when we brought ESRM back to life. And in 2016, it was part and became part of who ASIS is today. So this has been a long, long line of where we were before and where we are today. And it took a lot of us who were really stubborn and didn't want to give up on this to keep ESRM moving forward. And now that we have learned more, we figured out that there's still tension between the two. Physical security at that point in time was still pressing hard on cybersecurity, just like Hazel does every time Piper's on the couch. And they want to lay on top of her and wants to take over her space on the couch. I want your budget. We can do a better job. You guys don't understand. Physical security actually protects stuff. I'm doing something real. There's a guard that's walking around here. He's doing something meaningful. Your stuff is just information and data. No, it's not. Everything we focus on, all of us in this room, everything we do is here to protect an asset. Remember, one of the first things we have to understand with ESRM is it's the business that identifies what the assets are, and it's our job to protect the assets. That's our job. And information is an asset, just like a building, just like all of you in this room. They're all assets. So with this tension between these two groups, we had to break through this. We had to find a way that could be better for all of us. So we started. There is a better way. And it's through this concept of enterprise security risk management. So one of the things that I found is when I had a chance to sit back and actually take my ego off the table and remember all the mistakes I made in the career up to that point, when I decided this was time now to do a better thing and a better way, that's when everything got better for me personally, but also for every program that I put in place, for every company I've worked with since that time. It took a long time to get to this place. I made a lot of mistakes along the way. And I hope you folks don't have to do the same type of mistakes. But when we found this better way, it meant that we had a couple of things ahead of us. Wouldn't it be better if everybody who was a security professional looked at one thing? What is the risk? What if we focused on just risk and found ways to reduce the risk, regardless if it's physical or cyber? What would that look like? Actually, it looked pretty good. In the last 20-some years, I've had a chance to put in place over a dozen security programs for the companies that I worked at as the chief security officer or as a consultant helping companies design their programs. And every one of those programs that I helped design these past 20 years is still running today. Still today. Joining the two teams, bringing them together under one roof, bringing them together under one common cause. I want to find the risk. And how can I find the risk and present it to executive? Remember, one of the things that's so important about enterprise security risk management, it is not our job as security professionals to accept the risk. Right? Everyone gets that? Not our job. So here's a story that tells you a little bit about this. I had a chance to become the chief security officer for the 5th largest oil and gas company in the world, Suncor Energy, based in Calgary, Alberta. So I took over the job, and I was only there a week. And I was still unpacking my boxes and putting up pictures of the dogs in the office. And I hate to call this person a young kid, but this young kid walks into my office, right? He was probably in the 20s. And he says, "Oh, hey, Tim, I just need you to review this letter and sign it for me, and I'll get out of your way." I said, "Hi, I'm Tim. I'm the security officer for Suncor. Who the hell are you?" He said, "Oh, hey, no, I'm one of your analysts. I work for the team, and we just did this big risk assessment. Can you review it and sign it?" And I went, "Wait a second, why are you signing a risk assessment?" He said, "Well, we always do that." All right, let's break this down. So what had happened is, in Suncor, I don't know if you folks are familiar with northern Alberta, but it's where one of the largest deposits of oil embedded in sand exists. So these are thousands of miles of these sands. They're called oil sands. And Suncor and other companies found a way to take the oil out of the sand and then sell the oil as a product. Wonderful. It just requires a whole lot of mining. So you have these really big trucks that drive in and out of the mine. in these really big like buckets that pick up all the dirt and put it in the truck. And it's expensive. These trucks are $10 million a piece. Every tire is $500,000 to replace. And what somebody thought, wouldn't it be a great idea to take the drivers out of the truck and let the truck run by itself and have the robot drive the truck, but it's going to follow a network, and the network's going to tell it when to turn right or when to turn left. Super smart idea. I save money. I don't have to pay a driver. Everybody makes money. Perfect. Unfortunately, my team sat on the highway half a mile away from this network. They broke into it, and they showed how they could make the truck turn left instead of right. Yeah, so that's a problem. And right after that, we actually showed them that if I kept it turning left, it would actually fall off the cliff. And there's $10 million off the cliff. But they thought that we'll do the risk assessment. We did it. It was a really great job. Honestly, they did a terrific job. And then our team was going to accept that kind of risk for a $48 billion a year company. Can you see the problem there? Why are we signing off on this risk? So I told him, I said, well, this stops. This stops. And he says, but Tim, I have to hand this in today. No, you're good. You go back to work. I got this. So I actually phoned the vice president for operations in the part of Alberta called Fort McMurray, and I said, hi, Bob, I'm brand new to the job. I just want to go over this risk assessment. Oh, yeah, right. When are we going to get that? Well, you're not. You're not getting that. He said, what? No, I'm presenting this to the board of directors. And the phone got really quiet. He said, well, what? Yeah, you don't sign this either. This goes to the board. And he's like, Tim, I don't understand. You guys always do this. No, not anymore. Because this is how we're going to run this. And I explained to him ESRM. And you could hear him getting the phone on speaker, getting a coffee, and bringing in all of his directors to hear this story, to hear this crazy guy in Calgary talking about risk. And at the end of it, I said, so from this point forward, risks like this, the only one who signs off on is the president and the board. That's it. And he's like, well, when will we find out? After the board meeting? And if they like the risk and say you can go ahead, good for you, off you go. So I had a board meeting as an introduction to Tim, from Tim to the board the next week. And my very first 5 minutes in Suncor was, I need to explain something and a risk that we identified. So my very first board meeting, the first 5 minutes, I'm talking about a multi-billion-dollar risk to the company. And that some clown thought it was a good idea to put a network in that one of my guys could break into and turn a truck left instead of right. And everyone on the board turned white, because they were investing a couple $100 million on this program. And all I told them, I said, this is terrific. If you guys want to sign off on this, I'm good. Because in 10 minutes, I got another meeting to go to. I'm good. And if you want to fire me, I'm good too, because I get paid either way. I'm good. And they said, well, Tim, what do you need to fix it? Thank you. That's all I wanted. What do you need to fix it? And we did. We fixed it. It was about a $10,000 fix. That's it. Had we not done that, had I simply signed off on the risk, had I just accepted the fact that this is how we always do it, and that the board wasn't made aware of a risk that could have impacted their entire organization and dropped the share price and the profit if a truck fell off. Because not only would the truck fall off, but then the union would go, we told you so. Then the shareholders would go, what were you thinking? And then the image of the company would drop in the public perception. So we stopped all of that with just a simple process and a $10,000 fix. So that, to me, is when I knew we were on the right path. Because that is the better way. And the focus for that better way is finding common ground. So what if we were able to find common ground? Well, what would that look like? First up, wouldn't it be great if everyone on the security team, regardless of its physical or cyber, knew what the business objectives were and why the company was there in the first place? Isn't that the first step? Next up, we should understand what are the assets that need to be in place for the company to be successful every day of the year. And it's our job then, once we know that, is what are the risks that are facing these assets? We need to be able to do all of this. Because once we do this, now we're going to sit in a room just like this and ask questions of the business and of human resources and legal and stakeholders and citizens to ask them, what option would you come up with to help us reduce this risk? We take that information and we bring it to the executives, because remember, at the end of all of this, the only one who can accept risk is the business, not security. Right? Because our goal now is to make sure executives understand and accept and agree the recommendations that we put forward. That's why in that example with Suncor, this one was easy because nobody wanted to put their name to that piece of paper and accept that risk if something went bad. Our job is to provide that simple of a picture to executives because I've been an executive and I know exactly how much time I have in the day to make a decision. And if you can come into my office with sock puppets and a crayon and draw me a picture that I understand, now I'll accept it. It has to be just that simple. And then finally, if we do everything, we align it to ESRM because the next step is how much can we do if we actually work together? The only time I found real success in my career was when I was able to work with both sides of security, on the physical and the cyber side. Because from that perspective, the only way that we were able to be successful as a team was to look at things as the team for security. If we do this right, now we start looking at all of these different points on the slide. We become open and transparent in the approach for our program. We provide greater communication to all of our executives. We understand the concept of governance because we've created a program and a structure that not only supports the work that we're doing, but also supports the requirements that the business has to be successful. We own our risk assessment process and the results that we provide. We know what the objectives are for the organization. We understand how to manage our program. We're accountable for all of our actions. And then finally, we look at it from an enterprise level, not a silo with just physical or cyber, but across the entire enterprise. These are the things if we do them well, folks. If we do them well, that's what designs and builds a program that you can be proud of using enterprise security risk management. All right, I have talked an awful lot this morning. So I'm going to open up to anybody who has questions on the floor. But can I ask everybody here in the room, after looking at this and hearing all of the fun that I had in my career, does this make sense? Okay, that's the first question. Second one, how hard is it going to be for you to go back to your enterprise, your company, and try to put this in place? If it is hard, why? Why would it be hard for you? Nobody wants to bring this up? Too hard? I don't know who those cyber guys are. I don't work with them. I think they're crazy. What? This is where I'm going to challenge all of you. When you get back home and you get back with your companies, what I want you to do is for the first time, if you haven't talked to someone on either the cyber side or the physical side, take someone out for coffee. First thing. Second, if you haven't done this already, find who your legal counsel is, who's the chief of operations, who's your HR director or managers, take them for coffee. And ask them, hey, what's a day look like for you? What do you do through your day? And then how can I help you be successful? Do that. And then every week, do it again with somebody else. And for the next 52 weeks, do it again. And I'll tell you why to do this. Because when I was in some of the, especially with the provincial government, when I ran the government of Alberta's security program, I spent a year talking to 23 ministers, deputy ministers, and the Premier's office. And they got to know me so well, every time there was a problem, they said, Tim, can you help us with this? I didn't have to push myself into the meeting. They brought me in. That needs to be our job now as security, is we need to find friends across the company and to take the time to learn about risk. Any final questions, folks? We're good? Thank you. Thank you, everyone.